My name is Rohan Sheth, and I want to invite you to the brand new series that we're shooting called Locally Owned, where we're going to be going interviewing small business owners and their success stories through this crazy time that we're currently living in. But guess what? Very first episode is going to be my company, growrev.com. Let's go. In episode 1, we're going to be talking about growrev.com. We're going to start this episode by introducing my business partner, Matt Farmer. Matt, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your backstory and where you've come from all these years to digital marketing and entrepreneurship?
All right, so yeah, the backstory started quite a long time ago. I've done website design since I was very, very young, and really that was kind of what propelled me into the digital marketing part. So I started off back when I was in high school, basically creating a review site just to get free stuff because I didn't have any money. So I created my own websites back when it was basically even unheard of. People thought, the internet wouldn't even be a thing at the time. So I did a lot of entrepreneurial stuff. I did a couple things that weren't so entrepreneurial, like I worked at a pickle factory. That was good fun. I worked at a cricket farm, a pizza shop. But really after that, I got kind of tired of it and went back into kind of the whole entrepreneurial journey, you could say. So basically, when I was really just ending high school, what I did is I started doing website design for a local track. So I did it for myself and I created multiple review sites, but this is the first time that I actually charged people for it. And it was before it really even existed. There wasn't many people doing it, but I went into that, had a great time doing it, really enjoyed website design, but I didn't enjoy the coding part of it. So back in the day, I had to explain to people what a website was. And I wasn't in a good area for it. I lived in a small town. There's 20,000 people, outnumbered by cows actually. I think there's like 25,000 cows in my town. So I'd have to explain to everybody, what a website is, etc. So I got this idea in my head and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna move to Vancouver, which was at the time like the Silicon Valley of Canada. And I was gonna move there and people would understand what websites were. So from there, I could create a business, etc. But, fast forward, I moved to Vancouver finally. I sold my computer, which was my pride and joy. I sold all my other stuff. I think I got maybe like $800 total. And basically what I did from there is I moved to Vancouver and I needed a job when I landed because you have to pay rent. I started living with a whole group of people. I had some friends that already went out there doing sales. And that's how I originally met this gentleman over here. I would actually live with a whole group of salespeople, and they're all doing their sales stuff, and I was the only guy who actually had a real job at the time, real job. So I'd go to IBM every day, and that was great. I got to browse the internet all day, and it was nice and fast, and I did a lot of like very corporate and technical support, etc. So when the economy started to go to shit, and what happened is I lost my job at IBM. I was actually, out of the 150 people that they hired, I was one of the last 2 to get fired from there because they loved me so much there. I just did a really good job. I did a great job. I didn't care too much. I actually didn't even really attend that often too by the end. I got really tired of it, and I was just looking forward to kind of getting back to the entrepreneurial stuff where I could control my income. As much as that $2,500 to $3,000 a month was great and paying my rent, I was like, I can't sustain this life. IBM was the exact definition of just being a number. I used to get letters from HR, which were letters of verbal warnings, which I always thought was hilarious because what's verbal about a letter? And basically saying like, Matt, you have to start coming to work. But because I did such a good job, I lasted and I made it the longest there. Then the recession hit, all of the jobs went to India, which at the time I was so content, like I was so happy about that because it meant I got a golden handshake. I got the severance that would last me a bit. So basically, while I had my severance, that's when I started up and started doing my website design again. And back in the day, there was some advertising you could do for it, but there wasn't too much. So what, I partnered up with my roommate. He did the graphic design, I did the coding. And what we did is we did $100 investment in marketing, which actually paid off insanely well. So I got 1,200 business cards, and during the middle of the night on Sunday, because we figured every Monday the owner of the store is likely to open the store, we handed out business cards to any business that could potentially want a website. So every night every Sunday night we do around like 300 business cards. We'd be out in the middle of the night getting stopped by cops asking us what we're doing and why we're going up to every single business. But we're just handing out business cards, and from that we actually got quite a bit of business. We'd get like 2-3 clients through, that was a couple $1,000s. It'd keep me barely surviving, barely eating, get me everything that I want. So I was really enjoying that, and it was interesting because at the time, like, that's when SEO started to blow up. And all my websites already had that, and I had one website design contract, and I got paid something like $2,000 for it, but he was paying an SEO guy $2,000 a month, and this guy wasn't doing anything compared to what I was doing. Like, I'd literally be sitting at home, I'd be coding everything, my graphic designer would be designing, and then we'd have a client come to us and basically be like, yeah, I know how we said we're gonna make it black, but let's make it purple instead. And back then it basically meant everything had to get recoded. So my life kind of turned into just being a coding machine, and I didn't like that. It wasn't a good challenge for me. So after a while, what we did is we started to actually dissolve the partnership. And then from there, I just started doing stuff like consulting with people. So I found out there was a ton of bloggers around Vancouver, and I'd rent a room and basically get a whole bunch of those people in the actual room, and I'd teach them how to use WordPress so they could create their own blog. And what happened was it ended up turning into a ton of website business because, they'd always get stuck at certain parts. And then what I'd do is I'd just basically, I'd go in and I'd fix it for them. So not only was I getting paid for these events, but I was getting paid for the actual doing the work too as well. So I was like, wow, this is way better. But I didn't like the coding part. I wasn't enjoying it. It was too much time on a computer just coding. I also have a bit of a finance background, so I really kind of just missed that whole part of it. And then from there, what I did is I started advertising on Craigslist that I did internet marketing. And at the time I didn't have much experience, but no one else in the world had any experience. This is like when Google first came out with marketing. And before this, I touched on it with like when I was a kid and I did the websites for reviews. I did a bit of that and sold banners and everything. So I understood it, and I had a bunch of courses that I did on it. And then from Craigslist, I ended up starting to get contracts from that. And basically, that's how it basically led to my first big internet marketing business. And this was around kind of 2008, 2009. So that's really where I started digital marketing. So it was quite a long time ago. We're talking 11 years ago, maybe even more, just because I've been doing it since I was a kid pretty much. And then, that led to my first big business partnership with digital marketing, and we'll go into more details about that one.
So let's roll into the office, and we're going to start talking about digital marketing and what GrowRev does for not only small businesses like Locally Owned, but enterprise level companies that we have as clients. So we're going to start by telling you some of the crazy accounts that he's worked on inside. Let's go. So you guys just heard Matt's story. What we're going to get into now is actually talking a little bit about the transition from when Matt and I first met. We met, like he said, in 12, 13, 14, I don't even know how many years ago.
No, it was before that. It would have been like 2006 or 2007.
Seven-ish. Yeah, it would have been around there.
Around there. Yeah. When I first moved out to Vancouver, that's when I met Rohan.
We are sitting in a very interesting time. 2020 has been a very interesting year for everybody across the board. 2019 was one of our biggest years we've ever had in business. And we were getting geared up for literally hiring staff, investing in advertising at an eviscerating rate. And we were getting geared to probably triple the company this year. And The pandemic had a different plan for us, but it didn't stop us. let me put it that way.
It didn't stop us. And you just kind of go back to your roots of like, what are you providing and how do you pivot to some extent? And I think even just like we could go into the pandemic topic now, where it's really interesting. At the beginning of the pandemic, you remember, it was like 2 weeks of pain because all of our clients said, that's where all the weak ones folded. And then all the ones that didn't, and we specifically went to them, we're like, we're going to help you out through this because, if it helps you, it helps us. And even with our clients, we're like, we're in the long term. Even if you can't afford to pay us, let's figure out a payment plan or we can get you later on, etc. And it was crazy. 2 weeks, it was like everybody thought everything was dying, but all the people who pivoted and were smart and said, let's just take it online. And we're trying to tell our clients, we're like, if anything, we think the pandemic could be a blessing for digital because it pushes so many people online. It pushed so many people to change their habits of how they buy, how they learn, for example. So we did we're massive in event campaigns. We're promoting some of the biggest events in the world pretty much when it comes to consumer events, etc. But all those got canceled and we said, let's do virtual events. And all the companies that did virtual events that we work with right now are making the most money they've ever made.
But it's one of those situations we were running a digital agency, servicing what you cannot do because of the pandemic anymore, because it was running and filling 1,000 people events at a time. And overnight, you wake up one day, you have a business and you could fulfill clients. The next day you wake up and you don't because the clients can't run their events. So we're sitting here like, what the hell do we do?
And you don't even know the problem too is it was an unknown to how bad is this? We'd get a couple clients where we'd lose per day, but is it next week are we gonna have 50% of our previous revenue, 25%, 0%, etc.? And to some extent we're kind of ready for it, but it was just I don't know. From my side, I was just let's just view it as an opportunity and what can we do with it? And from that, we pivoted all of our clients, all the remaining ones. We didn't lose much. There's a lot of the e-com agencies got, at the beginning, they got slaughtered. Small business. But then the e-commerce ones were also the ones to make the most money after the fact too, which is the craziest part because everybody is forced to buy online and nobody stopped spending. That didn't happen. Everybody thinks that, pandemic hits and everybody just grabs their money and puts it in their pocket, walks away. It's the exact opposite.
To kind of even tell you guys a little story too, with the pandemic, it was interesting because we had clients that lost and we took a dive and then we kind of came out of it, obviously. We had clients that we went to and there was one client that comes to mind specifically, and I'm having a conversation with him and he's based out of Australia and he's literally sitting there, he's like, man, I'm gonna have to shut my doors down because I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I was like, seriously,
don't mind me.
Are we good? We're good rolling? And he goes, I'm gonna have to shut my doors down because I don't know what to do because his entire business was 100% offline, but he's lead generating online. And I go, calm your horses down and let's just get creative and pivot your business. And when we did that, and I spent some time creating and pivoting his entire business from the point of this would have been end of March. So April, we did the pivot. May into now, he's had a bigger year than he had all of 2019 just from April till now. So for you to think about that and when that started to kind of catch fire and we started talking about it on on Instagram and on Facebook and stuff and kind of doing some of the transitions that we did for some of our clients and the pivoting that we used in the time is also what attracted a lot of new clientele to us. And there's been news, I got picked up on 5 different news channels talking about how to pivot. And the reason being is if you look at during the pandemic, some of the biggest pain points and why we even choosing to do this YouTube series is some of the biggest enterprise companies that are out there, like Neiman Marcus, gone. And Forever 21, gone. Aldo, going to be gone very, very soon. Victoria's Secret, gone. And it's if they just shifted and pivoted, majority of while the malls are closed, etc., and just shifted early on and they say, spend a little bit more money in digital, where would they be today? And they just went to, whether it's building a custom store using whether it's Shopify or BigCommerce or ElasticPath or whatever the different competitors that are out there, and just shifting the digital economy, they'd still be around today. One of our other clients in the e-commerce space was a company that sells $1,000 dresses. You'd say?
Oh,
even more
than that.
Even more than that. And they were on Fifth Avenue in New York, one of the big cities that got hit by the pandemic the hardest. And, why don't you tell that story? Because that story is a unique one too.
No, that was a good one because a little bit before the pandemic, they're smart enough to realize that they should really fix their online. And during the pandemic, they're forced to shut down. But the best part was that they had a massive advantage that they didn't even really exploit that much, which was during the pandemic, all the shipping got slowed down from China and China shut down. And all their competitors actually, they basically just ship dresses from China. So basically during this time, the pandemic, all these other brides, etc., they weren't able to get their wedding dress. And they were able to jump in and basically say, hey, we're US made. We're completely US made. We can deliver your dress. We can do short turnarounds, everything. So there's tons of little things we did for them where now their revenue on the online front is actually equivalent to what they get from the physical stores. So that was that was a huge breakthrough. And then they also did stuff like virtual try-on campaigns, etc. So now, of course, when it opens back up, they're going to do extremely well because a lot of their competitors got absolutely destroyed from that. But now they have a massive online presence, so they're able to double, triple their business just online from the pandemic itself. So,
which is massive because if you think about it, they're selling $5,000+ wedding dresses, and they were getting to a point where they're going to sell out of inventory during the pandemic.
Oh, they did, and they even had evening dresses. And the funniest part is, like, just to give you an idea of how much people were buying during the pandemic, is they were selling evening gowns and dresses for going out, even though everyone was quarantined. No one could even leave their house, and these people are buying dresses like we haven't even ever seen before. So they had some dresses that were just inventory and they're able to make a lot of money from, and other dresses that are custom, like a wedding dress, for example. Wedding dresses were pretty much untouched. We got more business there because a lot of their competitors couldn't deliver. But even these evening gowns, when people couldn't even go out and shop, they're selling like hotcakes because no one had anything to do. And they're just they're clicking around the internet and they're looking to purchase stuff. So we basically sold them out. They have this one dress called the Little White Dress by Amsala. Highly recommend you go buy it. It's a good one. Just a little plug for them to help my e-commerce metrics. But, you know, they're an example of basically pivoting for this industry. So it's like we didn't just get the experience of pivoting our agency, but you know, it's like we did 5 times the work for half the money pretty much during this time because we knew we had to. But it's also, it gives us a massive advantage during the when the pandemic's over, like because of all this stuff and other agencies going down and people not pivoting, we picked up some amazingly big clients during this time. Just because, you know, they're looking for other people and all the other agencies are hurting and they're more focused on that. But really right now, it's just like, we're looking beyond the pandemic. It's like, let's set ourselves up for beyond this right now. So
that's exactly it. And the whole point behind this series, and you guys are going to see, like, we wanted to open the first episode with our story and kind of the way we took a beating, kind of get to know Matt a little bit more, and you know, just the craziness of what can happen in entrepreneurship. And the reason we're calling it locally owned is, you know, locally owned because we are a Vancouver-based company, and we're going to be doing this pretty much across all of Vancouver, Canada at some point, United States, Australia, wherever the hell we end up with being able to travel post-pandemic. But I just want to showcase one thing is, for anybody sitting out there watching this series and considering wanting to get into the business world, wanting to get online, doesn't matter if you want to open a brick and mortar store but you want to still market online. You got to understand one thing: quit worrying about, from our perspective, and I think the lesson from this episode is more going to be, quit worrying about the micro details that most people get lost into, and start worrying about the macro and start thinking about how you can actually make a difference with whatever business you're going to be offering. Like we said earlier, when we literally was a Skype message that started this entire business, and today, you know, we're on track to be a multi-million-dollar paid advertising agency that works with some of the biggest brands, and it started over a Skype conversation that didn't have any legal, that didn't have a registered business name for about 90 days of running into the company, and we just went out there and did it. And you know, pivoting then, pivoting now, pivoting in the future. We don't know what's going to happen. We have no idea what's going to come out of this. But one thing that I want to kind of give you guys as context and kind of just as this first part of the story, you know, we've got tons of success stories that we can share with clients. We've got clients that, made $5 million in a very, very short amount of time, just pivoting their offline events to an online event model. And now they're just literally printing money to Amsala as a wedding dress company, to clients that couldn't even, they were literally days away from shutting down. It's like, believe in yourself, understand how you can kind of get this done, find someone that can help you and actually transition your business, because that is where you're going to win. So Matt, for us to end this first locally owned episode, and I'm sure we'll come back and do encores and different things for every season, talk about every season of what's going to happen with this until we go back to normal. What is something that you probably suggest to the small businesses that are going to be watching this and are watching this right now, and from the perspective of what should they be doing currently, going into Q4 and getting ready for 2021?
I think, and you kind of touched on it, and the way that I view it is like, really just look for opportunity. It's not about, too many people focus on the bad stuff. I could have been focused on how I wasn't happy at digital brand services and not looking for more opportunity. It's like, constantly just look for opportunity, because even if an event seems like it's bad, like Corona, it's bad, and there's a lot of bad things that happen, it creates all these brand new opportunities that no one's ever thought of before, versus like a market that's already stabilized and everything. You're going to be competing with lots of competitors, etc. We're definitely in a time of opportunity, and that's kind of how I've always looked at it. It's really just like, look at what opportunity is present for your business. And we've seen we have lots of business owner friends. We've heard so many stories of pivots that make people not only more successful, but they even get happier with their business model. Like, for example, some of the people that went from in-person events to online events, they actually prefer the business that they have now over. They said, literally, we're not going back to the in-person events because it was such a headache. We had to fly people in and set up, and it was a nightmare. And they actually like their business model better now because of the opportunity Corona's created for them. So really, it's like, look at the opportunity for your business. It doesn't matter what you're in. There's been millions of different types of pivots around the world. There's been a company in Australia that used to basically set up stages and stuff. They do all like the different setup for events, etc. And they started selling standing desks. And now they're going to be like $1 billion company selling these standing desks. They like this business model better. And it's only because they looked at it on the side of opportunity. So, if you're a business owner and you're hurting right now and you feel like your business just got its legs kicked out from under it, just really look for what's the opportunity in the current market. And, it may take a couple tries. We never instantly come up with everything. Just keep trying new different things, but really just look for what's the newest opportunity. Don't focus on what's preventing your business from working. Don't focus on the news. Don't focus on any of the negative. Who cares? All that stuff it's already there. It's static. It exists. Whether you think about it or not, don't let it have the real estate in your mind. Just think about, what's the opportunity that I can have in today's market? And it's going to change. Corona's going to end, and there's going to be new opportunities from there. But just, face your decisions looking at what's the opportunity. And then, like Rohan said, you don't have to invest a lot to create a business or try something out. Try out some new things, and it's amazing. That stuff where you're like, bam, I'm on to something big and chasing that. You may be in a much happier and better position from doing something like that than you are, just basically ending your business or running it the current way, struggling, or definitely look for your opportunity. And that's what I got to say on our side. Really excited for the series. Of course, we're going to get lots of stories for you from local businesses, different pivots, people who weren't able to pivot, advice on different sides of it. But yeah.
And I'm excited because you're going to see me in a lot of the episodes. You're going to see Matt in some of the episodes. And the big thing behind this is to give you guys hope, to understand. It's like, you're going to see some stories. And I know the stories that are coming up of where people were days away from not just losing their business, but losing their household, and because their entire life was built on their business, but they had to. And we're going to get to the emotional side of that when we get to those. But it's like, just don't worry, because at the end of the day, life's not happening to you, and it's happening for you. So use that as an example in business overall, and just enjoy it. Enjoy the journey, because you don't know what's going to happen next. And hopefully 2021, we can see, one of the things that we're missing in 2020 is getting on a plane and traveling around the world, because we loved that and had an epic time doing it last year. So if we're going to see this, and if you're seeing this somewhere internationally and locally owned, let us know what cities you want us to come and do this series in. Hope you guys enjoyed the very first episode of Locally Owned and the stories behind Matt and my success of building growrev.com. Now, what I want to do is I want to invite you to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave us a comment on your biggest takeaway, because what you're going to get every single video is going to be life-changing. There's going to be tons of takeaways, and I want you guys interacting with me. Now, for additional content specifically on each episode, I want to invite you to go to my Instagram handle, which is right here, and DM me the word local. Because if you go to this Instagram right here and DM me the word local, you're going to get to see behind-the-scenes content no one is going to see except for those of you that DM me the word local. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave us a comment, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
You